So I'm mainly a children's and young adult author. By the end of 2022, I'll have had 86 books published so far. Here are some of the covers of my books. A lot of children's books there. You can see there's a mix of picture books, early readers, middle grade novels as well. And the middle grade novels probably go up to young adult. As a fun experiment, I've actually self-published 6 of those 86 books. These are those self-published titles. I wanted to understand all sides of publishing, especially the design, distribution and marketing sides of the industry. It's been really fun trying my hand at it, and when I write a story now, I know that I can publish it myself if I can't find a publisher who's interested in it and I still believe in it. Then I'm able to publish it myself, which is really liberating, because it means instead of thinking what would this publisher or that publisher think of what I'm writing, I just write for myself now, knowing that if all else fails, I can publish it on my own. I've been a writer for most of my life. At the age of about 15, I wrote a poem, the first time I ever wrote something spontaneously, which ended up being published in my high school end-of-year magazine, and I even won the Senior Literature Prize, which was $20 whole, which was a vast fortune for a 15-year-old in about 1979. So that was the beginning of me thinking that perhaps I was reasonably good at putting words together, and I haven't stopped since. I went from writing poems to writing rudimentary songs while I learned the guitar, and ended up forming a band that became a little tiny bit famous in the late 1980s. In fact, we were famous enough to get on TV a couple of times with our film clips, one of which is this one.
Well, I am tuned to the key of some old Neil Diamond song, and I am singing and singing along, and all the clever people have gone into the beat on, and I am singing, and I am singing, and I am singing, and I am singing. Well, I am dancing to the beat of some old Elvis song, and we take flight, if not for very long. All the hopeless dancers have gone. They're gone into the beat on, and I am dancing.
That's probably more than enough of that. We actually reformed the band in about 2010 as a bit of a midlife crisis project and wrote some music, and here's a little bit of a glimpse of the music that we ended up writing around 2010. Going back now to my early 20s, I wrote comedy for radio and actually started getting paid for it by a fellow called Brian Dorr that many Australians will know and love as a comedy writer for ABC's Radio National. Then I got offered around that time full-time work as a radio broadcaster, again with the ABC, but this time with Radio Australia instead of Radio National. I worked for 10 years as a broadcaster in a variety of capacities. I reported on sport for much of that time. I hosted music programs and an environment program for a couple of years, and I wrote and produced a flow program about Pacific issues and affairs. I left the ABC when I was 32 and went on to write all sorts of corporate and educational material, like putting university courses online. Somewhere around that time, the ABC asked me to help write and produce a couple of series of animated Aboriginal Dreamtime stories. The stories and supporting artwork were gathered from a couple of communities in Western Australia and the Northern Territory, which I then turned into 5-minute animation scripts, which would be approved or not, or tweaked by representatives of the Aboriginal communities. The late Tom E. Lewis, an actor, singer, dancer, musician, artist, was not just the most artistic person I have ever met in my life, but a dream to work with, and he knew exactly how to steer our ship. The end result is a series that's still shown in Australian schools called Dust Echoes. I also wrote some episodes of an animated TV series called Old Tom about the very famous, very funny Lee Hobbs books, and an animation series that was made by Yoram Gross in Sydney. Then I was asked to write a book or two for an old friend who'd started her own publisher. That was around 1999 or 2000. It was a very busy time for me, and I had one free day. So I had to get these 2 books written in that day. I wrote the first in the morning. It was only 500 words. And the second in the afternoon. And that was only 800 words. So I got those 2 books written in a day. They got published. They did well. And I found myself thinking about a possible new career that I wasn't expecting. But before all of this writing, I grew up in a housing commission flat, which is a public housing for people who don't have enough money to pay normal rent or mortgage. So that was my first 7 or so years of life in a housing commission flat in inner city Melbourne. It was an interesting experience, and I'll elaborate on that in some of the true life stories that I've got planned for this channel. So my YouTube channel is all about writing and stories. True stories and made-up stories, adult stories and children's stories. And also, I've got lots of writing advice for young people, 12 and older, but also lots of writing advice coming for adults too. Look for the videos labelled Think Like an Author. That's some of the advice I've got for adult authors, and it's really an attempt to capture the things I wish I'd known when I was starting out as an author. There are also readings of lots of my children's books. They've been sitting on this channel for a while. And as I mentioned, there are stories about my real life experiences in Housing Commission, which had some dark moments, so probably less for kids than for adults. And also moments in life, like when my dad won Tats Lotto, which is an Australian lottery, and won what the equivalent of millions and millions of dollars now. This was back when I was 14, 1978, and managed to lose not only all of what we'd won, but everything else we owned. And this is apparently a very, very common experience for people who come into money in this way, by winning it. What happens with most people who win money is they lose it all in a very short period of time. I'm going to tell that story, what it was like to win it, and what I think the lessons are from that experience and many, many other experiences I've had. It's been a roller coaster of a life, and I've got a lot of stories to share with you, and hopefully they will entertain you and also maybe help you in some unexpected way through whatever struggles and difficulties you're facing in your life at the moment. Because you know what? I've found meaning in just about every bad thing that's happened in my life. I get how it also led to something good. So welcome to my channel. I'm Michael Wagner. I hope that my channel inspires you and entertains you and encourages you to do the writing you really need to do.